All right. I guess we're live. It says don't have anybody. Oh, wait a minute. We got people in private chat. I thought I heard them. Oh no, that was you. My bad. Okay. Well, let me go back to the comments. We got nobody with us at the moment. But that's okay. Me and you can hang out and have fun. We do it all the time.
Do it all the time.
Do it all the time. So, for those of you that aren't here live, but we'll see this later. Hey, Jimmy's on here. Are you the one who knocks? He's referring to the fact they call me Heisenberg at school.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So yes, I'm the one who knocks, but that's a different context. So thanks for being here, Jimmy. Sure appreciate it, man. Um, Tonight, of course, Kyle's got the show notes, so he knows what's going on. Jimmy don't know what's going on. Nobody else will know what's going on unless they already know what. Well, it's saying nobody's watching us. So Jimmy showed up, commented, and left. Apparently, that's all right. Blue Bear's here. Hey, Hall Pass. Hello, you tyrant. Hey, man. I can send you a link if you want to come on. If not, that's cool too. But so, anyways, anybody that's catching us live or anybody that's going to get it to us later, thanks for being here. Thanks for watching later. Whatever the case may be, you're still part of the community that we're trying to build. Have a good time hanging out here. But do me a favor, go ahead and hit that like. Or if you're skeptical, wait till you watch a bit before you hit like. But don't forget is the important part. And if you don't mind, hit the subscribe button and the notification if you like what we're doing, so you can check out what we got going on at any given moment. Whenever it pops up, let you know. But here's Kyle. How you doing, Kyle?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. Doing well. It's been a good. Let's see. Blue Bear says he might here in a bit. Come on with us. Trying to get a few things done at the moment. Hey, man, you do what you got to do. Life's a little crazy. I expect we'll be here somewhere between 1 and 2 hours. So, come on back when you can. Do what you got to do. I'd be happy to hang out with you here as we get going. And tonight's a Scotch night, by the way, in case you didn't know what Burns night was, which I didn't when I woke up this morning. So, right, we'll do the ATF check here in a little bit. But just wanted to mention again, like, subscribe, hit the notification. And I've told some people that followed me, they hit notification and they went back and they said it wasn't on. I know it's happened to me when I've tried to follow conservative leaning channels where they will just unclick the notify on you. I don't know if it's on purpose or some weird conspiracy theory or some other technical glitch, but I have to hit notification twice in a lot of cases. So if your notifications aren't on, then, maybe you got to go back and hit that notification bell again and maybe again and again. Who knows? But in any case, appreciate that. And ZXL's got some videos he's giving you a link to. That'd be very cool. And then the AI. Okay, yeah, you guys can see the link. You can see there in the chat what he's talking about. How you doing, ZXL? Appreciate you being here, man. And but tonight's Burns night. Had you heard of Burns night before I told you about it, Kyle?
I had not.
Yeah, me neither. I hadn't heard about it. When I woke up this morning, didn't know what it was. When I found out about it, I was like, dadgummit, that'd be a great show or a great, piece of a show. So that's why I got the title up.
Here we are.
Night, and here we are. Plus, it's a segue into a couple other chunks of my life and things I talk about and things I do. So I thought it'd be a great topic for us. So let's see. We got Blue Bear and Jimmy Kraft and ZXL in there. I haven't heard back from Chad or Ironton Auditor yet, so I don't know if they're going to pop up or not. But we'll start with our ATF check here. For those of you new to the channel, Kyle and I met through the Big Black Evil Rifle industry. For many years, I did that as my primary or only source of a living for quite a bit. Worked in the firearms industry. And Kyle was a student at one point. And I ended up he being my boss there for a while when he owned his own shop, and he had a partner, and things didn't quite work out there. So now we're both onto bigger and not as great things, but
bigger,
but more stable.
More stable.
And that has some benefits. So
with hopes and dreams to maybe
do more. Who knows? Who knows, man? Who knows? You got to play the lottery to win it. So I ain't winning anytime soon, but.
Right.
But anyways, so part of our kind of an inside joke, maybe not so inside, is we do an ATF check for Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and of course explosives. I don't really deal with any explosives because I'm not married. Yeah. So part of what we do here is ATF check. So the alcohol I'm drinking at the moment is let's see. I got Bowmore 12.
Oh, nice.
I have not bought, and Kyle knows this, I have not bought one drop of scotch. Not one drop. All the scotch in my house was purchased by my buddy Joe, our buddy Joe, who just got off the phone with me a little bit ago. He can't be here. He's doing much more enjoyable things tonight. But anyways, I told him, I said, hey, man, we'll be tapping into some of your scotch for the night. And he said, yeah, go for it. He asked me which one, and I didn't have an answer at the time. So I had to do a little research before I went to the shelf and chose some. And we'll talk more about that as we go. But this is the Bowmore 12, a lowland scotch, by the way. What are you drinking on there, Kyle?
I've just got some Dewar's White Label, man.
Okay. I don't know. I honestly, because I've had a classical scotch, but I didn't memorize what was where. Do you know which region or which type of scotch that is? Because I don't.
I'm sure I can look and find out. I don't offhand know.
Because what I've got right now, I haven't tasted it yet. I like nosing my whiskey a lot, as you know. And this Bowmore.
The most I can find on it, just by glancing through, it just says Perthshire, Scotland. So if you geographically know where that is.
I don't off the top of my head. I'd have to look. And then even when you do, you still got to look at where the Scotch regions are. Because then otherwise you'd have to have the regions memorized. So yeah, I had to do, like I said, I had to do some quick research before I picked my scotches for the night. But this is good.
Good. Yeah.
This Bowmore. I have my notes from the class before I put down on the nose. I had spice, citrus, maybe coconut, which tonight that's not happening. So I don't know. Corn. But now tonight I can add to it. I got some of that peaty smoke and that salt air, man. That's something I get in scotch.
Salt air, man. I mean,
yeah, I don't get any of that with the bourbons or the American stuff. No. But with the scotches, sometimes like you can smell the sea next to it.
Well, then other times maybe not the sea even, but just straight campfire. I know we both like the.
I meant the salt air part. Yeah, the salt. Yeah, the American stuff, campfire to me.
Campfire.
Yeah, that's what I love about just basic Jim Beam is that smells like a good campfire, man. Like hanging out with your friends. Not even high quality, but that's what I get when I open the bottles. That oak campfire. But see, I got a couple others here. I'm gonna tap into. I got Auchentoshan and Ardbeg. So, yeah, Ardbeg's good too. I've obviously had all these. But anyways, this is a good one. And you smoking on anything yet? Or that's right, you not able to, or you?
I'm just not, man. What we talked about the slight health issues, which this is probably no better. But one of those slight health issues is a 2-centimeter nodule they found on my lower right lung. So I'm trying to limit how much stuff I'm putting in my lungs.
Dude.
Yeah.
Dude, when are they going to find? I mean, this is news, everybody. What are they going to?
I go back for some more tests, CT scan stuff. Could be nothing. Could be something. Don't know yet.
Sure. Yeah.
But okay. So I'm back on the Copenhagen train a little bit because I am nicotine dependent. So I have some of that.
No vaping or anything, huh?
Yeah. No, I am. I'm vaping a little bit.
Okay.
Not much though. That's one of the ones I had laying around, and I haven't bought one. In over a week now. So
trying to wean yourself off.
Yeah, just kind of weaning off and using the Copenhagen there, which is no better. That's not me trying to state that one is better than the other, but
for your lungs, one is
right.
And that's what when I talk to people, you've heard me lecture on this stuff before. That's not a vice I have, so I'm not coming from experience of having the tentacles of nicotine wrapped around me that I know it does to you. But I just tell the kids, when I'm dealing with the kids, especially Jimmy, if you're here, man, your lungs are meant for one thing and one thing only: air, just air. You can't say just oxygen because air has more in it than oxygen. It's meant to deal with normal air. That's what your lungs are for. And if you're inhaling vape, it's got to have some negative side effects. If you're inhaling any kind of smoke, it's got to have some negative side effects. I mean, even if we talk about the vets, right? The vets that had the burn pits.
Mm-hmm.
The burn. I mean, we're not even talking a cigarette smoker there, or anything, or a vapor, or nothing like that. We're talking somebody just doing a job, inhaling too much smoke of that type causes a whole. That's right, Jimmy. Just air, no vape, man. So I know one of the things when I decided to take up cigars and pipes, the very first thing I looked for was, because I'd heard by word of mouth that you don't inhale, but I never did like look up any facts about it. And I found out you don't. And, I've heard people say, well, that's justification because you're bound to get a little bit. Well, that's true. I'm sure I get a little bit, but in the big picture, risk, benefit, reward, I think it's pretty decent in the risk, benefit, reward ratio. Yeah. Not doing any of it, of course, is better,
Sure.
It's all about how you calculate life. But when you choose to simply inhale something into your lungs, I think the cost benefit analysis changes drastically mathematically there. Problem is, a lot of people get sucked into it, and Kyle, obviously people get sucked into it before they know the facts or before they have that judgment center of the brain developed all the way. And you get into it maybe for the wrong reasons. The next thing you know, it's got, like I said, it's got its tentacles wrapped around you. So God bless those who are stuck like that. I know my mom struggled with that. In the end, for my mom, she cared more about a cigarette than she did anything on this planet. And that fact alone to me was enough to hate them. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That product, however it does it. And we know how it does it. I just don't know the science behind it, but they specifically designed those to addict you, to deliver the addictive part as efficiently as possible, so that you got to buy some more, man. And cigars aren't that way. Pipe tobacco is not that way. However, I will say, and I was talking to you about my health issues. We talked on the last live stream about how finally, for the first time in my life, I had some below average for my age health statistics, because I'd always been way above for my age. And I did get to thinking, this is also after I took up cigars and pipes. So I got to thinking there may be a little bit of a correlation there. I don't know. We'll see as I go through the fitness if I can actually increase those levels and fix things. But as you know, there for a while, man, I was smoking 3, 4, maybe up to a dozen cigars a day.
Oh yeah.
When I had the money for the cheapies and blood pressure wasn't an issue, and then so I had to pull away back on the blood pressure, that just comes with age, even if you're very healthy. But anyway, so maybe wonder if that's part of it. But yep, that's right, Jimmy. For your lungs, just air, man, no vape. So Kyle, yeah, man, the Copenhagen is way better if you got an issue in the lungs. That's significantly better.
I agree.
Now, if you got big lumps in your mouth and your lungs, well, now that's another story.
Better just knock it off, huh?
That's right. But for now, or then you're back to the patch or some chewing gum, I guess. But
something, yeah.
But just and I've had kids at school ask me about getting addicted, and Kyle knows me well enough to know the story that I didn't start drinking alcohol till my 27th birthday. I didn't partake in any tobacco products of any kind until my 51st year. I don't remember where in that year, but I started smoking a pipe, and then went from pipe to cigars, and back and forth as I go, and sometimes a lot, sometimes not very much. But Kyle knows I'll stop for a while, for weeks, just to see, is there any kind of lifestyle addiction? I don't know the technical terms of these, habitual addictions, physical, chemical addictions. So I'll just stop quite often just to sort of test myself and see, does it bother me? And so far I've never had it, other than maybe the alcohol when I want to just have a drink while I'm watching TV. That sometimes when I go on my little alcohol fasting, I'll just want the drink, so maybe there's a little bit there. But other than that, man, I'll just go get a Coke instead. So I don't know if I'm just lucky and I don't have those tendencies, because my mom was an extremely addictive personality and my dad was quite the opposite. My dad would smoke cigarettes for years and then one day just say, this is silly, and lay them down, and that's it. No issues, no problems. And then he may go a year or two and say, you know what, I want a cigarette. And then he'll start back again. And then he would do that on and off his entire adult life, quitting for years on end, coming back for a year or two, then back off, whenever he chose. So I had two parents on the opposite ends of the spectrum. My mom, if she liked it, she wanted it as much as she could get it, whatever it was. And so, I guess I got dad's end on that to a degree. Hey, Kelly, thanks for being here. Appreciate it. We haven't really gotten into the meat of anything. Kyle just gave us a health update, something he's got going on. So we started talking about that. Plus, we did the ATF check and talking about alcohol. And when we got to the tobacco, he was telling me he's had to drop off. He's down to Copenhagen. But that's your tobacco, man. That's tobacco.
And I've always been a fan of Copenhagen. So
there you go. So tonight, in honor of Burns Night, I decided to go with the pipe, brother.
Ooh.
So, yeah, I'm going to pack the pipe here in a little bit. That's the one you got me.
Yeah.
It's the one you got me, yeah. The not exactly a church warden. It's not quite – I don't think it's –
the stem's not long enough for a church warden.
Not quite church warden. So, yeah. So, for those that don't know, the longer the stem, the idea is to cool the air a little bit before it gets you. Kelly says stopped tobacco 8 years ago, but she does vape. So, Kelly – Jimmy just said what he hears from me at school on a regular basis, or other kids have heard from me. All the lungs are made for is just air, just air. So good for getting rid of the smoke. That gets rid of, I'd say, 95% of the problem with tobacco. But the lungs are made for just air. So that's what we were talking about right before you got here. And pipes and cigars, you don't inhale into your lungs, just your mouth. So that's why I decided to start them in my 50s. So I was a little worried about those. But, of course, you got possibility of gum cancer. You got the palate. I forget what they call it when you can get cancer of that. You got throat. So there's still some risk. We talked a little bit about cost-benefit analysis on any vice you do, of course. So, anyways, I'll probably pack a pipe here in a minute. She says, this is true. She can taste food. Yeah, I've heard. We were talking about that in health class recently, is how so many smokers, that's one of the reasons cited for weight gain when people quit smoking. All of a sudden, food tastes much better. I've never lived through that phenomenon, so I don't know. But I know I burned my tongue a lot with pipes and occasionally with the cigars, so I don't know.
You probably with cigars more than anybody else I've ever met. But
I'm kind of sensitive with a lot of stuff. I don't know. And much cheaper. Yeah, I would assume it's cheaper, especially based on how much you may or may not use, Kelly. But tonight's Burns night, and we were saying there for a couple minutes, we had nobody on here with us. So me and Kyle I asked him, I said, did you ever hear Burns night before? And he said, no. And I said, I didn't either when I woke up this morning. But it's something I learned about today and thought, this would be a great show. So what's that?
After you told me, yeah, I did. Before you sent me the
show notes.
The show notes here. I did a little research of my own, and it's right along the lines of what you sent me. So very cool, man. It's actually an interesting topic. I'm kind of excited for us to get into it a little bit.
Yeah. I'm a little. I mean, I just did some, very cursory research enough to give some interesting facts out to people. And Kelly says she was smoking a carton a week. Yeah, that's the way my mom was, or maybe even a little more. And yeah, I know when I used to have to go buy them for my mom all the time, I think whatever she was smoking was like $80 a carton.
It's pretty average nowadays, I think, man. I don't know if there's any cigarettes that are cheaper than like $4 or $5 a pack. I haven't kept track, but
that's crazy. So, intro to pipes here real quick. Like we said, this is not a church. Kyle bought this for me. This was a gift from Kyle. And this is my primary when I smoke pipes. This is my primary one. It's beautiful and enjoyable. Got a decent sized bowl. Not as big as that one you and Joe have, the Gargantuan or Goliath or Hercules or whatever it is you guys got.
I might pull that out here in a minute.
So when you pack the bowl on a Blue Bear says he's going to finish burning one. When you pack the pipe on pack the bowl on a pipe with tobacco, I don't know about other substances. You basically just go tighter as you go, but your effort has less effect on what you first put in. So in other words, you don't pack the first little bit you put in real tight, then the next one's a little tighter, a little tighter, a little tighter, and then when you get to the end, you're really stuffing it in. But you're not giving it enough force. It's not packing in what's at the bottom of the bowl. So that's sort of the plan there when you pack it with tobacco. And I'm just doing, even though I got some cool liquor and everything, when it comes to pipe tobacco. My favorite is just cheapy stuff. Captain Black Royal, I think, is still to this day my favorite for pipes.
I've got a few things. I'm going to grab a couple of things. I'm coming right back.
Sure. So, in any case, let's see. Yeah, I got airflow. I'm good. So the idea here is that it cools the smoke as it gets to you, because one of the major things with pipe smoking is tongue burn or tongue bite. So, oh, you just finished. Okay, I see what you're saying there. So Kelly says she went from 65 a carton per week to 25 every 2 weeks for juice, plus the initial charge for the vape and batteries, about $79, and no more toxins. Absolutely, Kelly. And I mean, I tried switching my mom to vapes when they first became a major thing. They've been around a while, but as they really hit sort of mainstream popularity, and I took her in. I got her a class on them, how to get them going. This was before she had any kind of dementia, and she claimed that she could never. She claimed she could never get quite enough out of them. I think she just wanted the cigarette. But yeah, that's what I tried telling her. I was like, Mom, that's smoke. I forget, how many chemicals they say are in the smoke. It is to say. And yeah, I mean, I struggled with her and the smoking forever. She had COPD and smoking a carton a week. And it was just, so I learned to literally hate them. It was like watching something abuse something you love. And hey, Lisa, good to see you. Hey, Blue Bear. So the topic tonight is Burns Night, and we're kind of easing our way into it. We did our ATF check, and we talked alcohol, tobacco, and I'm kind of I found out that even though I'm not monetized yet, they still will keep track of how many times we talk about this. So I guess I'm trying to learn my way around these restrictions to see. So maybe I'll have to talk to someone more experienced like you about how that works. But anyway, so easing our way into Burns Night, and we'll talk about Burns Night here in a second. And what I just talked to Kyle about was I woke up this morning never having heard of it. Didn't know anything about it. Wouldn't have had a clue if you mentioned it to me. And as you guys know, I'm an instructor with Whiskey University. And so we have a couple Discord instructor chats. And so because I'm here at the border of Ohio, Kentucky, and West Virginia, I'm technically the West Virginia leader for Whiskey University. And that puts me in the Mid-Atlantic region. So I'm in the Mid-Atlantic discussion. And I'm also in the Midwest discussion because I'm Ohio and Kentucky as well. So anyways, on one of the chats today, somebody said, Happy Burns Night. I was like, what? So anytime I have a question, I just stop and Google, so to speak, even though I quit trying to use Google. But so I looked up Burns Night, and as I got into it, I was like, man, this would be a great show tonight, because I was kind of narrowing down a couple topics to do, and we'll do a few. But the major topic tonight that I want to sort of lead things off with after we get through all of the hellos and the basics here was this concept of Burns Night. So Burns Night is named for the poet Robert Burns from Scotland. I'm not a poet. I'm not a poetry guy, right? So not something I followed a lot of. I knew the bare basics, of course, that I'd heard of his name and I'd heard of some of his works, didn't connect the two, didn't know anything about Scotland. So I began doing a little research, and he grew up was born in Ayr, Scotland, the Ayrshire, and spent his adult life in Dumfries, which I'd heard of Dumfries before, and found out that pretty popular, even here in America, pretty popular among those. Hey, Zayden, what's up? Pretty popular even here in America among people that obviously pay attention to poetry. But in the rest of the English-speaking world, that is Canada, Australia, New Zealand, you got a little bit bigger of a following. We tend to be, we have a history of being a little anti-British here in America. So some of that stuff we kind of go the opposite direction on. But the rest of the English-speaking world, he's a little bit of a bigger deal. And he's very big in Russia and Japan, which I didn't read about why that may be or anything about those specifics, except that he's very big historically in Russia and Japan. So he was in his adulthood right around the founding of our nation in the 1770s, 80s, 90s, was his heyday. And when he was writing, and there are more statues built around the world to his honor than there are Shakespeare. And that really kind of piqued my interest. And I was thinking, well, why would that be? Still not sure I understand the why, but it got me digging a little deeper. And come to find out that every year on tonight. So tonight is the night. It's actually January 25th is Burns Night. And it's celebrated largely in all the English-speaking world, or chunks of the English-speaking world, especially in Scotland, obviously. And worldwide income to Scotland because of Burns Night is £250 million, British pounds, a year of income for Scotland. I was like, what? That's just crazy to me. $250 million a year on something called Burns Night that I'd never heard of. And so once again, obviously got to dig in a little deeper. So it's kind of a trivia thing, but based on the way me and Kyle hang out and the things we're into and everything, and I think you guys to a degree as well, I thought this is kind of cool. Let's talk about this sort of to use modern buzzwords, raise awareness to Burns Night. Not that it's any kind of cause, but I thought it was kind of cool. So a Burns supper is a nighttime supper is the tradition, and it's celebrated since 1801. So we're talking, this is the 222nd year of Burns Nights, celebrated in English-speaking world. It began on the 5th anniversary of his death in 1801. He died a young man, 37 years old. But the 5th anniversary of his death, his friends got together in a pub which is still there. His favorite chair in the bar is still there. The apartment that he would stay in above the bar, still there. The place he lived, still there. And he had a habit of taking a diamond ring and going all over that area of Scotland. And he would go to people's houses or buildings or pubs or whatever. Oh, you got the corncob pipe? That's some good stuff.
Pipe, and
he would go to these places, and with a diamond, he would scratch his poetry into people's windows. It's kind of unique. Couldn't believe I ever heard that. Technically a crime of vandalism at the time.
Etched it into their windows.
Etched into people's windows that are still there to this day. So yeah, people have windows. So if you go for Burns Night to Scotland, like if you took a trip as a tourist to go to Scotland for Burns Night, you would tour the area where he lived and see the actual, bed he slept, all that, because that certain parts of Europe, man, they don't change anything. It stays that way for centuries. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want some dude like in Ironton today walking around etching stuff in my windows. But, these people are making quite a bit of money off tourists now because you can go to these windows and see where Robert Burns stood there with his diamond and etched poetry into their windows. So he was a little bit of he was a farmer and very interested in farming and a hardworking guy, but also had these sort of eccentricities, which is, people you remember are always that kind of way, I guess. But so his friends got together 5 years after his death and had the first Burns Night or Burns Supper. And that's where these traditions began. So his birthday is 25th of January. He would be 264 years old tonight. But the traditional, the sound would be horrible, wouldn't it, Lisa? The traditional Burns supper is cock-a-leekie soup. I'm going to guess that's chicken and leeks. I don't know. Just educated guess or semi-educated guess. Cock-a-leekie soup. I could make a lot of jokes there. Haggis with a side of neeps and tatties. I'm guessing tatties is taters. That's a guess.
Neeps are boiled and mashed turnips.
Oh, you looked at it. Okay.
And
yeah.
Tatties are potatoes with cream. Haggis is sheep's.
It's sheep's guts stuffed with stuff.
It's sheep's heart,
sheep's stomach, right?
Hearts, liver, and kidneys ground to a paste, mixed with herbs, shoved in the stomach lining. Yeah. Cock-a-leekie soup. I'm not familiar with. Glass of whiskey, though, I am, and that was
right. Glass of whiskey. Yep, glass of whiskey, and that's why we got the scotch tonight. And I specifically looked up Scotland is divided into a few different geographical categories, and in those categories is where different styles of scotch come from. So he comes from the Lowlands area, Ayr and Dumfries, and So that's considered the lowland area of Scotland. So tonight I have 3 lowland scotches, and the first, of course, for those of you that weren't here when I showed it earlier, Bowmore 12 is what I'm drinking at the moment. So I got a wee dram. Do you have a wee dram of scotch there?
I do. A Dewar's White Label. A wee dram.
Comcast is cockles. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what to do with that, Kelly. Comcast is cockles. I think I agree. I think so. What is it? Cockaliki soup. I'm guessing
soup. That one. No idea. Not familiar with it at all.
I'm just guessing chicken and leeks, which leeks is a kind of onion. So
based on the name itself, I would say it's a pretty good guess, Tommy.
Yeah. So the tradition was cockaliki soup, followed by haggis with neeps and tatties, a glass of whiskey, and then they would read his poem address to a haggis. So he wrote a few poems which are kind of on a funny side, and like he wrote a poem I read today where he was sitting in church and he saw a lice crawling on a woman's head. So he wrote a poem like I forgot what the name. Sounds like some guy has some incontinence. Cockaliki. That's the joke I was saying. Kind of thinking, hey Fubar, good to see you, man. Thanks for being here. So addressed to a haggis. So I read he would write this really big flowing poetry that was about big ideas, monumental things like honor and love and those things, of course. But then he would also write a poem about a lice. And when I read the poem about the lice, here was the cool thing: is what he was saying and sitting in church watching this lice crawl in this woman's head is that lice doesn't care about who you are. What class you're from, nobility or peasant, or whether you're rich or whether you're educated or not, the lice don't care. And so in the end, the poem was about us all being equal in the end, us all being humans. So I was like, well, that's kind of cool, a little different. So like I said, I'm not a poetry guy. So I I'd heard of the guy, and I'd heard of some of the poems, but hadn't really dove into this, didn't know there was such a thing as Burns Night. So then, of course, you would follow with bagpipes, Scottish music, and reading poetry. And we're only going to do, obviously, a couple pieces of that. Me and Kyle, at least, are having some scotch. And
I was really hoping you were going to get your bagpipes.
Well, if I had them, I would. And I even thought of pulling them up on another thing here and having some in the background, but I figured that may get me some sort of copyright problem. So I didn't do that either. I mean, I guess even bagpipers have a right to be copyrighted, right?
I mean, it didn't play out well for Metallica, so.
Okay. So Burns' contributions, kind of why do we care about him today, especially here in America, right? So what's the things, the one thing that he had a big contribution, which I didn't know. I didn't know any of this. So Lisa says, okay, I was cringing over the sound of etching glass, then the sheep guts, now the lice. And then we mentioned bagpipes. It just keeps getting better, doesn't it? Makes you wonder, what the hell happened on that damn island? So you get warnings on all kinds of stuff, but not British food. What the hell? So the thing about a pipe is you got to relight them a lot.
A lot.
So
but the aroma, man.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, if you got people that don't like the smell of cigars around you, whip out the pipe. They'll gather. So his contributions. We've all heard of the book of Mice and Men by Steinbeck, and some of us probably the movie if we haven't read the book or don't know of the book. That's a phrase from one of Burns' poems, of Mice and Men. Michael Jackson. Oh, I like some good bagpipes. Not all of them, of course, but some definitely. Michael Jackson supposedly claims that he was inspired by the Robert Burns poem, Halloween. So Robert Burns is the guy credited with popularizing the word Halloween.
Did not
right?
know that.
Yeah, didn't know that either. He didn't make up the word, but he's the guy that sort of wrote a poem, I guess, and made it a more popular thing. So the cockles come from Scotsman in a skirt playing bagpipes. Okay, so that makes cock and leaky soup something I want to avoid if that has anything to do with it. That's for sure.
So I wonder. So he is the one that maybe kind of more popularized Halloween. You said from All Hallows Eve. Is that kind of, so?
Well, I think it's that Scottish dialect of how they combine so much, and certain pieces of words get dropped out because Hallows Evening is what, or Hallows Eve is what you hear it referred to, but to get the N at the end, it's because it's even, right? Hallows Even, Hallows E'en, so slowly turned into what we call Halloween with our not so flowing language, which I like English, by the way. I prefer English, and I think it's superior to most of those other weird dialects and almost every other language in the world. However, its lack of flow sometimes is kind of chunky, and I like to hear foreigners make fun of it. It's really funny. So, and here's the other one. Here's probably the biggest contribution to modern culture worldwide, especially in English countries. Auld Lang Syne, the song we sing at New Year's Eve. That's his poem. Yeah, he didn't make it up from scratch, but he took what was already sort of Scottish culture. Auld Lang Syne means old times gone, or long times gone. So it's talking about the past and then referring to the future, and that's why we use it on New Year's Eve. But it wasn't specifically a New Year's Eve poem. It's just that's sort of the notch of culture that it fell into. But yeah, those are Scottish words, Auld Lang Syne, and he wrote a poem which made it more of a song, because he did a lot of his poems, they say, are actually meant to be lyrics to songs, not just strictly poetry. So, so we get Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men, Michael Jackson's Thriller. Michael Jackson said was inspired by a Robert Burns poem, and Auld Lang Syne, and the word Halloween, which that kind of goes with the Thriller Michael Jackson thing.
Very cool, man. Especially learning, all those little things, in one sitting. Basically, when before you had mentioned it, I had no idea anything about Burns Night or really who this fellow was. So,
James Irvine. Wait a minute, is this Jim Irvine? My Jim Irvine, or is this somebody else? He says, as a Scotsman, you are correct, Tom. And if it's a Jim Irvine that I think it is, I didn't even know you were a Scotsman.
I didn't either. If it's who we believe it is.
So I feel slighted, Jim, that you didn't tell me about Burns Night before. Hey,
he said yes.
It's Jimmy boy. So Jimmy is apparently a Scotsman. Didn't know that. You need to wear your kilt a little more often there on the range, brother. One of those 5'11" tactical kilts that suits you good. Don't forget golf. The bastards came up with the game from hell. Right? Right, they did. I mean,
Robin Williams, man. Gotta love him.
Right.
Yeah.
50%. His dad was 100%. Did not know that, Jim. That's interesting. No, Jim is we've had Jim on a YouTube live stream before. Jim is the president of Buckeye Firearms Foundation and one of the co-directors of Faster Saves Lives, which we talk about on this channel a lot. Jim was the guy when we talked about right after the Newtown massacre. People started calling saying, hey, what's Ohio got for this? How can we prevent this? And he was in on the absolute genesis. And without him, and Joe, but without him, Faster Saves Lives wouldn't exist. So that's the Jim Irvine hanging out with us tonight. You can all, give him a little round of applause there. He also flies airplanes for a living. And the more I talk to him, the more I just want to drive. I'll put it that way. So, so you got to. So if you got some Burns Night stories, Jim, you gotta let us in on that, man, because it's just something I learned about today. And then Scotch. So I figured we'd talk a little bit about Scotch because I am a whiskey university tasting instructor, and so who out there in the group Same for his passengers. Yeah, but you tell me stories. You don't tell them the stories I get to hear. They just hear you screaming from the cockpits how you make them want to drive. That's all. But Scotch. So Scotch is supposedly what when bourbon and American whiskeys were being invented here in America, what some of the distillers were going for. They were trying to recreate Scotch. A big chunk of America's original founding was from the Scots Irish, which would be a great show to talk about. Some of you may remember, hey, Blue Bear. Well, that's the guy to talk to, Jim Irvine, right there, man. He got some information for you. I'm not saying it's any good, but he'll have some information for you. So when as people were fleeing and coming to immigrate to America, you had a chunk of people that didn't fit in Britain at the time, right? So you had the lower classes of the Scots, the lower classes of the Irish, and and of course the Scotch and the Irish were both, according to whose perspective you want to talk about, being persecuted by, of course, Britain, trying to unite the kingdom and control it all. So there was all these wars on the borders, and the Northern Ireland area, as well as the border between England and Scotland, are all right there, fairly close, even though there's a little bit of water in between Ireland and the rest. So that area constantly got warred over. And so then you had the lower classes of the Scots and the Irish, which were kind of outcasts of their own people too. So they ended up fleeing to America and became what we call the Scots Irish, which is sort of an entirely separate group of people. It's not just a mix of Scottish people and Irish people, because there's also some Welsh in there and some others. But they became a group we call the Scots Irish that David Hackett Fisher called the Border Peoples. And they are who settled Appalachia. And they are mostly who went west as well later. With the Scandinavians and the Germans in there too. We're not going to get into all that. But the point is, when they were trying to recreate Scotch from their land, a lot of them ended up making what ended up being what we call today bourbon or the other American whiskeys. Yeah, Kelly, mine too. Scotch, is aged, and sometimes they even did charred barrels. We did not invent charred barrels here in America, but there's some specifics to Scotch. But Scotch is what gives it its flavor as compared to the charred oak here with bourbon and a lot of other American whiskeys. Is what gives it its flavor is they take peat, which is a type of grass over in Scotland, and they peel it off like sod and let it dry to the point where they can burn it, and then it smokes the grains that they're then going to use to make the Scotch. And that's where you get the complexity and the differences in Scotch. And of course, there's a thousand different. Hey, Jim says he'd love to stay and listen and chat, but he has to get to bed so he can get up and be ready to fly planes. Have a great night, everyone. On behalf of your passengers tomorrow, please get some sleep, Jim. Thanks for stopping by. I really appreciate, Jim. Really appreciate you stopping by, and we will talk soon, I'm sure. Good night, brother. So anyways, that's how we get Scotch. Scotch is a lot from the smoke. Now, there are different techniques, and of course, they take all the different variations that you can do to make Scotch, and they do it different in different regions of Scotland. Some are extremely smoky, which can be very delicious, and some a little off-putting. And then, of course, you got sometimes a little bit more on the spicier sides in different regions. So not a Scotch class, but just wanted to mention that the basics of it. And Robert Burns came from the lowland area. So I'm having a lowland Scotch. We haven't looked up yet what it is that Dewar's is, if it has a style, since it's such a mass marketed version of Scotch. I don't know. It may try to play the middle. I'm not really sure. But anyways, having a little Bowmore 12, little vanilla and fruity on the palate, with that little smokiness too. Some good stuff. And one thing I was going to do, and so I was reading, the tradition is to read Address to a Haggis. Well, I tell you what, Fubar, if you like whiskey, but you don't like Scotch, odds are you've tried the wrong Scotch, because it's a wide variety of styles. I learned when I had the Scotch class. because I tended when I drank scotch to always have the same one or two brands, one or two types, and didn't know there was such a wide variety. So if you don't like one, just try a different region, which the regions are basically the types. And so I'd say just try a different one. But I get you, because I was much more of a bourbon drinker myself. So
just posted what I found in the private chat there, Tommy, on Doers.
Oh, okay. Let me check that out. Dewar's Aberfeldy Distillery is located on the outskirts of picturesque Aberfeldy, just over 20 minutes from Pitlochry, and less than an hour from Perth. Though located amidst the majestic scenery of the Scottish Highlands, we are easily accessible from Edinburgh and Glasgow. Enjoy discovering Highland Perthshire. So I'm guessing it's what they call a Highland whiskey, which, without my notes in front of me, wouldn't want to know. I wouldn't know right off the top of my head what style of scotch that would make it in terms of techniques or anything. So,
right.
But we know it's a Highland scotch. I got the Lowland for Robert Burns here, and he's got the Highland. And earlier I mentioned I haven't bought a drop of Scotch whiskey in my life. I've got a big library of Scotch in there, all due to my brother Joe Brigette, who's not here with us tonight. But he buys the expensive stuff and stores it at my house. And I told him I was going to be partaking in a wee dram or two tonight. And he said, go for it. So this is Joe's Bowmore 12 year. Definitely good stuff. But Kyle, I noticed what was funny here when I started reading Address to a Haggis, which is the tradition to read tonight, that if you read it the way he wrote it, you sound Scottish.
Yeah.
And I didn't expect that when I first grabbed it. So I thought it was kind of funny. So I'm not going to, because this is 1, 2, 3, 5.
Oh,
6.
No. You should do it out loud, Tommy.
No, I am. Absolutely. But I'm not going to read all 9 stanzas. I'm just going to read one, maybe 2. Right.
Very Scottish-like. Do it very Scottish-like.
So I'm going to read it. And then the Wikipedia version even had a translator for me, so I could understand the difference between Scottish written in the late 1700s and today. So here's the first stanza of Address to a Haggis. So he's talking to the haggis, and he says, "Fair fa your honest sonsie face, great chieftain o' the pudding race. Aboon them ye tak your place, painch, tripe, and therm. Weel are ye wordy o' a grace as langs me arm." I don't do accents very well, but I think just reading it the way he writes it, you get close. So here's what that meant. Nice seeing your honest chubby face, great chieftain of the sausage race. Above them all, you take your place, belly, tripe, or lynx. Well as you worthy of a grace as long as my arm. Yeah, I know. It's kind of, yeah.
It's definitely, even despite the fact that, when it's translated there, it's definitely dated for the times,
Yeah. But I mean, you can still hear the humor and the to me anyways, I really get how kind of hilarious this must have been at the time, especially if you can understand what the hell he's saying. So here, I'll read the last one. And I have not read this yet. This is first time my eyes have been on the words. Ye powers while make mankind your care, and dish them out their bill o' fare. Auld Scotland wants nae skinking ware, that jops in luggies. But if ye wish your grateful prayer, gie her a haggis. Okay. You powers that make mankind your care. So that'd be like politicians, kings. And dish them out your bill of fare. Old Scotland wants no watery ware, that slops in bowls. Don't give us your scraps, maybe? But if you wish her grateful prayer, give her a haggis.
Give her a
haggis. It's kind of like, it's there when I was first reading it, I thought it was a kind of, he went to Jared kind of thing there. I don't know. Give her a haggis.
Have you ever had haggis, Tommy?
I have not. Have you?
No. At least not in what I understand is the traditional,
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't sound like something I want to have, but I mean, I would.
I mean, I like steak and kidney pie and things like
The,
that.
the
So.
only the only things that I've refused to eat in my life are things that still look like they did when they were alive. I can't. That I can't. That's my border. I had.
You're a sausage fan. It's basically sausage, from what I
I love
understand.
sausages, dude. I don't think I've ever had a type of sausage I didn't love. So
I
yeah,
mean,
my guess is I'd like it.
yeah.
Yeah, food bars like haggis. Ooh, yeah. And so I mean, when you read if you put it in front of me and didn't say, "Hey, this is haggis," and by the way, that's a sheep's stomach it's in, I may just dig in without knowing it. I don't know. I am not picky, Lisa. Got a great story. Me and some friends were out on the Outer Banks. It's the whole story is hilarious. But in the Army at the time, a buddy tells us his grandma's got a beach house on Outer Banks, and we're thinking this big luxury thing, right? And literally, we all get there, and as we're pulling up, it's this little teeny house surrounded by luxury beach houses that's got like tar paper siding, right? And the boat laying in the yard is a John boat chained to the side of the house. His grandma and grandpa bought it in like the late 40s and 50s, and they hadn't updated anything. So the whole neighborhood turned into these $250,000, million to up to $1.25 million houses with docks and yachts. And his grandma still had this like 500 square foot shack with tar paper on the sides and a John boat. And so that my Army buddy took us all to his grandma's beach house at Outer Banks, and that's what we went to. Anyways, so we all get drunk, obviously, and we get in this John boat and we row over to this island. Have no idea why we were going, but we get there, and it's basically like if you've ever lived somewhere where there's been lots of floods, how it's like crusty mud. It's just like crusty mud and twig trees. Anyways, so my buddy's taking a leak, and not cock a leak, right? Not the soup, but he's taking a leak, and all of a sudden he yells, "Greg, Greg!" And my buddy Greg drops his backpack he's carrying and pulls out his gun and shoots this cottonmouth that was about 10, 12 inches away from my buddy's, junk while he was peeing. He just accidentally started peeing on the cottonmouth without knowing it. And it reared up like a cobra. And my buddy shot it and literally split it down the middle of its head. And so I had cottonmouth. We ate the cottonmouth later. We grilled it out. It was like very dry chicken. But then again, we were all drunk, so I'm not so sure the cook was doing a good job. But so we had plus Bob was very high testosterone guy. Once we killed it, he was so mad at it, he beat it on a tree. So it probably just wasn't prepared well, if you know what I'm saying. So and then when I was in Korea, we were all just we were bar hopping and had a Vietnam vet grab a bunch of us and drag us all in and say he wanted to buy us something to eat. It was like 2 a.m. or whatever. Takes us into this Korean restaurant. And I mean, we're talking like, for people around here, you would know this is like the Frisette of Korean restaurants, right? It's like mom and pop, just a couple places to sit down. And so he orders for us. We don't even know what we're ordering. And it comes out, we're eating it, and we find out it basically looked like beef vegetable soup, right? Nothing special. But it was dog. We were eating dog. And so I asked the waitress, and this is not a joke, this isn't a punchline, but I asked the waitress, I was like, so what kind of dog is this? What do you guys use for this? And she said, "Oh, you Americans call it chow." I was like, is that a joke? Chow? But she said that was the kind of dog because she's went, the blue tongue. I was like, well, that's a chow. So yeah, they chow dogs, I guess, is what they harvest for. I don't know. But I ate it. So I'm not a picky eater. But if it still looks like what it looked like when it was living, then I got an issue. Sushi, I'm all over some sushi, but not the suction cups. I lived in Japan for 3 years, and some of the sushi will be like octopus, and it'll still have the suction cup from the octopus. Yeah, that still looks like what it was. Or they'll have like fish eyes in the middle of like a bird's nest of rice. It's kind of weird. So if it still looks like it used to, can't do it. But otherwise, I'd eat some haggis. I'd give it a try. I'd prefer it not be, Robert Burns here is mentioning, how was it he said that? He basically mentioned 3 forms of it: painch, tripe, or therm. And the translation is belly, tripe, or links. I think I'd prefer a link. I think the belly is probably the one stuffed in the belly, I would guess.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, without being a haggis expert. Food Bar says, when in another country, never ask what you're eating. Don't ask, don't tell. I get the logic, but I'm the kind of guy that asks anyways, man. I'm all over the asking. So I like to know shit. So, so yeah, so that was Address to a Haggis, the first and last stanzas of Address to a Haggis. And I guarantee you within the next 48 hours, I'll read the whole thing. But for today, like I said, I just learned about this morning. So I thought we'd just give a a nod to Scotland. Probably a big chunk of my heritage. I'm not sure about that. I haven't done the whole Japan. You can get in Japan. I'm guessing you can get just about anything, Fubar. I'm not sure. Lisa keeps a freezer full of beef. Contributing with all those cow farts. What's going on there? They're going to make us start eating bugs. I saw a Babylon Bee article today. It was a herd of cowboys that had cashed in all their cattle for a herd of crickets, and I'm assuming it was all photoshopped, but it was this cowboys and they had lassos and they're doing this, and it's just this big cloud of crickets in front of them, and they're
that was
pasture. That, I mean, obviously, but I mean parts of it at least. But would there be maybe a wave of crickets in a pasture? Maybe. So I don't know, but yeah, Photoshop. But anyways, it was pretty funny. Oh, they had a beef farm. Very cool, Lisa. Very cool. Thanks for contributing to Feeding America. Appreciate that. But anyways, I figured we'd get an intro there to Burns Night, what that is. Maybe next year, if I get it on the calendar, we'll actually have an actual Burns Night next year. That'd be kind of cool.
It'd be kind of cool. Yeah.
We could have some neeps and tatties and drink haggis. A lot more. Some haggis. I don't know how the hell to get haggis. I have no idea. May have to order. That's probably something you can get. Amazon. I bet you can get haggis on Amazon. Somebody needs to look that up.
I bet you can get haggis on Amazon.
I bet you can get haggis on Amazon. So, anyways, another thing this week, 2 nights ago, birthday of John Hancock. So John Hancock, big deal. Big deal with American history. Contributed a lot more than that big ass signature, and that's what he's known for. And to me, it's a little bit of a disservice to the band if that's what everybody knows. Said to be a smuggler, and I'm pretty sure he did some smuggling, but that was not his trade. He became a smuggler due to the same policies that caused the revolution, the series of trade policies and taxation and prohibitions, et cetera, that caused the revolution to have its spark and give it its fuel, was the same reasons that he began smuggling. So basically, okay, here's a great analogy. So imagine they make gasoline illegal. How many people would smuggle some gasoline to keep some old engines going or whatever? That kind of thing. So my understanding of John Hancock is, yes, he was one of the richest men in the colonies. He was maybe more of an Elon Musk or a Bill Gates type, financially speaking or business speaking at the time. And he also funded a lot of the Sons of Liberty, a lot of the things that got our revolution going. Very good friends with Samuel Adams early. They had a break later in life. Contributed to the Constitutional Convention as well as the Declaration of Independence, was also a signer of the Articles of Confederation. He was there at all the major turning points and funded large chunks of it. So very important to, I believe, remember. If you remember one of my earlier, maybe it was the very first live stream I did on this channel, talked about the different days that we are commanded by the Bible to celebrate. That's right. It was my Thanksgiving show. Yeah. We're commanded to set aside a day to give thanks, commanded to set aside a day to remember. And so all throughout the Bible, you'll read how remembering or memorializing is very important. So absolutely, Kelly, support your local farms. Love to see local farmers, love to see relatively smaller farmers as compared to corporate farming. There's not necessarily inherently anything wrong with any of the above. However, corporations, just as they get bigger, there's an inherent problem as any organization, period, gets larger and larger, the corruption grows exponentially, is one of my core principal beliefs. So yes, that's one of the problems with your corporate farms. So did a little John Hancock memorializing there along with Burns Night, because that was all in the same week here. Was going to talk next about Didn't Hancock also start Jock Itch? I think that's a different spelling. I think
that was his cousin.
It was his cousin.
Yeah,
that was Billy Hancock.
Mm-hmm.
Or no, it wasn't Billy. I'm sorry, I had it closed. It was Willie Hancock. That's why I keep my business small so I don't become corrupt. Right? Yeah, there you go. Well, it's a natural byproduct, right? It's kind of hard to just corrupt yourself. You don't have a whole lot of power, so you can be, but the effects are very small. It's one of those principal issues. So I finished my wee dram of Bowmore. Let's see. So then I was going to talk about the selection. I didn't know if maybe Chad would be on here by now or not. But for those of you, anybody here with us the other night that is interested in this at all, if not, I will move on relatively quickly through it. But if there is anybody more interested, just let me know. But just wanted to talk about the status of that. So a little over a week ago, I had an idea, and it's based on a combination. It's based on a combination of Special Forces Assessment and Selection, which I did and completed in May 1992. And then a company that I follow, they're kind of a CrossFit company, GoRuck, and you can check them out at goruck.com. And they have one event that they don't even run yearly. Sometimes they don't, every other year sometimes, called Selection. And their selection is an ode or a nod to or a hat tip to, however you want to think about it, the actual U.S. Army Special Forces selection. So mine is kind of a nod to those two. I went through the real one in May 92, got non-select, was not a Green Beret, so I don't want anyone to misinterpret that. But I did complete it. I did the whole thing. And then I've done some GoRuck challenges. And I was trying to find a way at my age to push myself past my normal envelope, right? And I thought, well, last time I did that was, when I was training, I trained all by myself to go back into the Army. This would have been my second enlistment, to go back into the Army for SFAS. And so the idea was born to do this selection and to create my own 3-day event that would push me and give me a goal way above and beyond what would be ordinary for me. So I did. So anyways, we talked about that on Chad's live stream quite extensively the other night. He had me tell the history and the whole story. So I wanted to give an update on my training, Fubar. So thanks for the question there. Dovetails right in with what I wanted to do. So what I'm doing right now is, because day one of the selection, it will be an Army PT test. An Army PT test in my era and up until just recently was 2 minutes of push-ups, 2 minutes of sit-ups, and a 2-mile timed run. So I'm going to start off my selection with a PT test, which the real selection does as well. And I can't do 2 minutes of push-ups right now. I could probably do 2 minutes of sit-ups, but I can't do 2 minutes of push-ups. And I also probably can't complete a 2-mile run while actually running. I mean, I could continue it until I'm done, but it wouldn't be what I'd call running. So my first goal right now is to get up to that 2 miles of running in some acceptable level. And so I've already been out twice running. That's 2 more times than I did all of the last 5 years combined. So I appreciate it, Fubar. I appreciate the encouragement there. So I did a 10-minute, 18-second mile, and I did an 11-minute, 3-second mile day before yesterday. Today I was supposed to run again, but I got to let a blister heal, and I think I needed just a little bit of rest. So I'm still going to do my push-ups and sit-ups when we get done with the live stream, but didn't do the run today. And in Columbus, Ohio, on April 16th, they have a Ohio State 4-miler, and it's 4 miles. And it's called Finish on the 50. So you finish the finish line is the 50-yard line inside the stadium. And I'm a gigantic Ohio State fan. In case you didn't know, it's where I graduated college. Grew up Ohio State fan with my mom. Ended up going to college there. Lived in Columbus 10 years. It's like a virus. I mean, it gets you. So very steeped in Ohio State. And so they're having the 4-miler. And that's a good mid-training goal for me. So that gives me about 10 weeks. Go Bucks, Lisa. OH.
IO.
There we go. So it's a good mid-training goal for me, is to get up to that 4-mile mark. So right now I'm focusing very heavy on the elements of the PT test. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, my goal is to run, push-up, sit-ups. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, I'm rucking with some upper body sandbag workout afterwards. So yesterday, me and my grandson did 2 miles of rucking, and we did and I got to find the official name of this exercise because I don't know it. But I have a 60-pound sandbag, and so you kind of do a squat. So you do a clean and jerk, and then an overhead press, and toss the sandbag behind you, and then you just turn around, pick it up, and do the same thing. So you're just turning back and forth. So the last 2 days I rucked and then did 30 of those, and those just kicked my tail. So that was pretty good. So that's what I'm doing, Fubar. You asked for the update. That's what I'm doing. So I've kind of got a little bit of a plan and moving forward, and I've been pretty consistent so far. So that alone is an accomplishment for me. Just creating the new habit is such a difficult thing to do. And so let's see. Fubar says every other day, push-ups and sit-ups one day, next day do a run, take one day off to do a free exercise, swim, bike. Yeah, so the way I did it when I trained for selection 30 years ago was I went to the gym 5 days a week doing normal weightlifting stuff, high reps, lower weight. I rucked 3 days a week. I ran the opposite 3 days, and I had swim classes 3 days because I was not and still am not a strong swimmer. And one of the tests you have to do in week 1 is swim an Olympic-sized pool with a uniform and boots on. So I had to take swim classes back then, ruck, run, gym, 6 days a week. And it's pretty much a similar, lighter version of that I'm doing now without the gym, but adding sandbag workouts. So, yeah, there are certain muscles you can work out every day. Some, your abs you can do a couple times a day even, and they don't need the recovery time that some other muscle groups do. So, yeah, your forearms, calves, abs can take it pretty much every day. So given a little bit of time off. But right now, my biggest problem is increasing that aerobic ability, that my VO2 max, trying to find a way to increase that. So some sprints are in the offing soon and some hills. But so Kelly says, cool. Sounds like you have challenges to give your goals. And that was the whole purpose. So the original idea here wasn't to involve anyone. I was trying to figure out how to do this for myself. And I decided to sort of do an ode to what I did 30 years ago. Sorry to hear that, Fubar. He was training for a triathlon before a stroke. Wow. I don't swim well. So triathlon is not in my future. Don't even want to swim that well, to be honest. But God bless you for you though. So that's the selection update. So Kyle, with your recent health update you just gave us, you still got intentions on trying the selection, or you already started, or what's going on?
Oh yeah. Yep. Back in the gym. That's kind of part of the change as well. Despite the news of what may or may not be. The bigger part of that, man, was some of the other I guess you call side effects, maybe, or whether related or unrelated. But the spells I was having that were making it pretty hard to do much of anything. But I think I have those lined out as well. So getting in some more exercise, because up until those started there for a few years, I was in a pretty good routine, man. I woke up every morning and did calisthenics here at the house, and 7 days a week pretty much, and was in the best shape I've been in some time. But that kind of put a wrench in things, and I'm getting back on track though, and I still very much plan to be a part of that.
Okay, good.
The selection that we got going on in August.
So I haven't asked Kyle this on the side, but do you have any interest in doing the Ohio State 4-miler with me? Because here's the deal. The Ohio State 4-miler, by the way, and it's Ohio State 4 spelled out, not the number, miler.com. You can check it out, anybody. I suggest you do if you're anywhere local here, or if you're a runner, or if you know somebody, let them know. Because it's pretty cool, especially if they're an Ohio State fan. But you get a spring game ticket as part of your registration. And if you want additional tickets, the other tickets are cheaper. So you get a discount on any additional tickets you buy. So the spring game is at noon on Saturday the 15th. The run is at noon on Sunday, the 16th. So it's sort of a package. And my daughter is my family travel agent. And so her and her husband plan on going as well. I don't know if he plans on running, but he has said he's got interest in the selection. So she's already looked up Airbnbs for us. We just got to figure out, we got to get a confirmation on how many people and figure out what the division would be and how much it'll cost and all that. So I meant to call Kyle and tell him all this, but I figured, hey, why not just do it live here with you folks?
We're live here on the show. Let's just talk about it now.
Yeah, it's like
put him on the spot.
So Fubar says he invites us to Colorado, have a climb at a 14,000 K peak.
That would be a climb.
Eventually. Yeah, no, don't get me wrong. That is a great way to increase your oxygen capabilities, training at altitude. It's getting there would be my problem, but I would need to. And you know what? That's something, Kelly, I hadn't thought of. I've had COVID twice, and I know probably everyone listens had it at least once. It does change your respiratory. I hadn't thought about that with my drop in above average for my age to now below average for my age. I hadn't thought about maybe that has something to do with it. But I'm going to try to rebuild it anyways. She's trying to rebuild stamina by walking to it. Yeah, there you go. I mean, it's what I was teaching my grandsons yesterday is I was telling them what I said. I think that's something you need taught in school, but maybe some schools do. But, you know, the entire human body, and including our intellect and emotions, are all use it or lose it. If you don't use it, it goes away. She said she's never had it. Oh, okay. Wow. So there's somebody out there. But all of the human body is use it or lose it. And if you don't walk, if you don't move, you lose mobility. If you don't learn, if you don't make yourself learn new things, you lose the ability to learn. Your brain calcifies, so to speak, not in a literal sense. So yeah, you know, Kelly, get out there. You got a couple acres, do it. Literally starting, if you can, I mean, I'm not saying this is you, but I just mean anybody this would apply to. If all you can do is walk to the end of your street and back, you know, end of your block or the end of your driveway, whatever the case may be, and back, eventually, if you do that enough, you'll be able to do more. And then you do that more. The human body responds to you pushing its limits. And unless there's an injury or a very specific reason, like a disease preventing you, especially when you're young, your body just builds back better. I mean, that's the whole concept of how the human body works. It builds back better. So, yeah, I'm glad Kyle's still in it because I would assume even if he's got something negative going on, better fitness, better diet, work, it's still all going to strengthen you regardless. So, yeah, I'm glad even with his bad news there that he's back in it. Legs and arms are not getting the O2 needed for strength. Absolutely. And that was one of the things that that led me to decide that I needed something, which led to the selection idea was I was just reading a bunch of different stuff, and I kept all of it kept telling me it was all about blood flow, lack of blood flow, less blood flow, inefficient blood flow can affect all these different things as you get older. And then it hit me. I need to quit worrying about building muscle. I need to quit worrying about going to the gym and doing all this. I just need lots of cardio. And in so doing, of course, it'll accomplish other things. But that's what kind of led me to this selection thing. So absolutely. Blood flow. Just increase that cardio. Use all the parts of your body. I bet you did, Lisa. All of my family has heart issues, and I don't yet. That's one of the reasons. The other reasons I'm doing what I'm doing. So sorry to hear that, but glad you stayed away from the COVID at least. Well, the core rucking has a core element to it. Carrying the weight causes you to sort of do a crunch the entire time you're rucking. So there's a little bit of that too, rucking already. But you're right. I work on that some on the side too. That's some of the other exercises and stuff I do as well. So that's kind of the update there. But yeah, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'm doing Army PT test stuff, which has the sit-ups in it and some of the ab work. And then Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday is ruck and upper body workout because obviously the rucking is mostly lower body and abs. So, and Go Ruck has come out with their new, let's see, I got it here. And once again, I would recommend everybody go there and check out this website. If nothing else, you can tell other people in your life that are into CrossFit and other types of fitness to just let them know. It's not a nonprofit organization, so it's not like I'm preaching Red Cross here or nothing. But I'm just saying it's a good thing to know about. But GoRuck has just come out with their baseline functional fitness test, and I'm pretty sure that's on their website somewhere. I subscribe to a club, and I got this in the mail today, but divides you into a few different categories, and based on which category you believe you're in or want to be in, it tells you the standards as far as what weights you'll be doing different exercises with, different events with, and then you record that, and then at a different amount of time, you go back and you go back and compare your results and see what your baseline functional test is. So I plan on using this in the workouts too. And Kyle, I want to use this as a way to get the club up and running again. We are an official GoRuck club here in Lawrence County, the Ruck Eyes, which I started with Kyle right there by my side when I started. I was right when I first started working for you.
Yeah,
right there at TNK. So our very first workout as a club was right there in a little alley, right there in the alley by it.
Right there in the alley. It was just you and me. Yeah.
Yeah, just me and you. That was the first one. So, anyways, just wanted to bring that up. And, so for the final topic, at least, I wanted to talk about. Fubar says he hated to do PT tests, loved the run, the rest sucked. I pretty much think it all sucked. I didn't like doing any of it. But it's one of those things where, me and Kyle say in the firearms industry, we say often, do what you suck at. Because everyone wants to do what you're good at, but nobody, naturally speaking, nobody wants to do what you suck at. Because we all, it's a weakness. We don't feel confident. Nobody likes feeling weak, whether it's a skill or intellect or a physical thing. But yeah, that's where you grow, is you do what you suck at until you don't suck at it anymore.
Just embrace that suck, right, Fubar?
Yeah. Got to embrace the suck and suffer in silence. That's the new one I hear a lot. Suffer in silence. So I mentioned to you guys that Hulu TV show, Special Forces. I just watched the 4th episode, and the 5th episode's on. I think it's come on at 9, so it's on by now. But anyways, once again, the real value of that show to me personally is watching the contestants or the participants, because it's not a contest. So the participants, watching that mental thing they go through when I came back from Japan, Fubar, we had 90% humidity, 24/7, 365, no exaggeration, total fact. When I got back to the States after living in that humidity all the time, it was kind of the same as coming down from altitude, because when it's humid, you're getting less oxygen per volume of air because there's more water in it. So coming back to the States, normal humidity, I was like a gazelle for a little while. So I totally get what you're saying there. He's talking about coming down to sea level. Absolutely, totally get it. But anyways, this TV show, Special Forces, you see what people go through. So I was watching on Hulu, also on Hulu, is a show called The Standard. And I advise all of you to watch it if you have any interest in GoRuck and the selection I'm talking about at all, or you have an interest in watching the human spirit, watching what people can accomplish, and watching people work through that process within themselves. And Jason McCarthy, the founder and owner of GoRuck, talks about the selection event that he runs there. That event is the only event where they try to get you to quit and they play mind games with you. All the other GoRuck events, they're encouraging and polite and nice and helpful. But on selection, they're rude asshole drill sergeants. And that's on purpose. It's all for a purpose. So you see that. So I watched some of the early parts of the show, The Standard. They talk about some of the same stuff you hear in that goofy show, Special Forces, right? Because all the guys that run the Special Forces TV show are all real spec ops guys in real life. 2 SAS guys, a SEAL, and a Marine Recon guy. And you see them having the same talk, how they like watching that go through people's minds. They like seeing someone have the fear, conquer it, and they like that watching that emotional and intellectual roller coaster people go through when they're put to their limits. And so anyways, that theme is kind of just keeps running over with me. And then, of course, you can watch on Hulu. I'll say it again. The third thing you can watch on Hulu that will sort of educate you on all this is 2 Weeks in Hell which is about the second and third weeks of the real Special Forces Assessment and Selection. It's a 3-week course, but only 2 weeks of it are in hell, which is otherwise known as Camp McCall. Have I watched the show SEAL? Goes through SEAL training? No. Oh, yeah, I can't do SEAL because I don't do water. So, yeah, SEAL training out for me. Although it's an extremely intense but shorter period than selection. And then, of course, GoRuck selection is 48 hours straight. So it's a condensed version. So there's, obviously different issues with all the above. But, yeah, absolutely. SEAL training, what do they call that? The first?
Buds.
The first 48 hours.
Oh.
Well, no, is that a week? Hell Week? Is that where they get Hell Week?
Mm-hmm.
Is that where that's? Am I confusing something else? Anyways, yeah, but they got that short period, which is insane, that they go through too. So I'm going to break out the Auchentoshan next. This one is aged in American oak barrels. So not a. By the way, American whiskeys cannot have anything added to them other than water to allow them to reach the proper proof. But Irish whiskey as well as Scotch can have artificial colorings and flavors added to them and still be Scotch or Irish whiskey. So sometimes you'll see caramel coloring added to these. I haven't checked this one, but it is aged in American oak. Vanilla and coconut with clean citrus zest from the first fill bourbon casks.
Did I have that one? Tell me when Joe brought that by the house. I believe I did. That sounds familiar.
Doesn't look like it. If you did, you had very, very little.
I did just in the private chat there. It is Hell Week. I just gave you the info.
Yeah, Fubar just said it too. Yeah. No, I haven't seen it. Is that on what streaming service is that on, Fubar? Okay, he's not as quick on the keyboard as I was hoping. Yeah, this one is definitely smokier than
smokier. You getting some of that citrus, some of that orange?
Oh, yeah, definitely orange.
That sounds really appealing, actually.
Yeah, good.
Caught it on Netflix.
Okay, I will see about checking into that one too, because I'm looking for all the little. Sometimes even the goofy stuff. If it's inspirational, man, it works. Like, oh, he's on a tablet. Okay. So for me, and this is not a joke, man, when I was training for selection 30 years ago, I don't know if I've told you this, Kyle, I had a mixtape, right?
You did
this was 1990, 91, 92. Fall, winter of 91, 92 is when I trained for selection. And I had some songs that were about what they were about. Like I had the soundtrack of Rocky IV, the training montage music, and a couple of those other songs, right? And then I also had Mariah Carey's Make It Happen. So 2 things about Mariah Carey's Make It Happen. Obviously, the message is a little inspirational, especially for, at this time, a young man that had never accomplished anything like that in his life. That was needed that pounding in my head. And the pace of the song is excellent ruck pace. I still use it occasionally. Great ruck pace. She turned into kind of a dork, but otherwise, she was new at the time. But yeah, so watching the Rocky movies, the training montages. I mean, every time, man, I just want to start doing some push-ups or sit-ups or something, man. That Rocky IV when he goes to Russia, that training montage of him out in the barn. I just want to find a place to do hanging sit-ups or something. And so, and I told people back then, I said, and I'm not going to use such nice language here. I'll use more Army language when I say this, but if you can find ways to fuck with your own mind, do it. There's no shame in saying, in my opinion, there's no shame in saying Mariah Carey song works for me, or a Rocky movie or a song makes me want to work harder. If it works, it works. As our friend Alex would say, if it works, it ain't stupid. So, that's where I was just about to talk about that here in a second, Lisa. So, new information coming out, putting the blame on the school. Yep, that's what I was just about to talk about. So, great segue there for us. So, Yes, Rich Neck Elementary. That's the place where the 6-year-old shot the teacher. Read some stuff today where the teacher is suing the school. According to the statement the attorney put out today, not only her but other staff members, it doesn't specify, warned the school that he had a gun that day. Now, what we don't know, and I haven't heard anybody utter, at least in the media, is how they knew, what gave them the suspicion. No, nothing to be sorry about, Lisa. Not at all. Thanks for that. That worked out great.
I do. I have something here, Tommy. If you haven't seen this,
Okay.
The assistant principal has resigned as allegations surfaced that the administration failed to respond when warned about the armed student 3 times on the day of the shooting.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. I can post that source in the chat there too, if you'd like that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, please. Yeah. So what I got today is that her lawyer said that I guess several employees, like what Kyle's posting now, warned about this. Now, what I haven't heard yet is why they didn't find the gun. I haven't heard any hints about why that is, but they didn't, and didn't contact police. Superintendent was fired. Yeah, I heard they had to get a new superintendent, but I didn't read the details. What I read today didn't say why. I just thought it was maybe the way it was worded. I thought it was a normal election time for a new one or something, or however that the board was. Whatever, it made it sound routine, not fired. Yes, they did search his backpack supposedly, and they were warned. What Kyle's reading here and what Lisa's saying is 3 separate times before the shooting that day. We've also know now that he has some sort of behavioral disorder that, quote, requires his parents to attend school with him, which blew my mind. That's even possible or permitted or whatever. I just never heard of that. So that the week this happened was the first week his parents hadn't been with him in class. Up till that point, they had spent every school day with him all day. That kind of blew my mind. But they were warned 3 times. Supposedly his bag was checked. Nothing was found. Police were not contacted. And the police chief put that out in a statement that they hadn't been contacted until the shooting occurred. And the parents, there's a tiny bit more detail on what they were calling secured. Parents say the gun was, quote, secured on a shelf inside a closet that was at least 6 foot tall, and the gun had a trigger lock on it. So it's possible this kid is like the 10-year-old that killed his mother and just knows enough to know where it's at and have enough intent to get a key, take a trigger lock off, and obviously fired the gun, so the trigger lock wasn't on it. Yeah, Fubar, I don't know. The mental health part, obviously, for the kid. I mean, well, Virginia law, I said this in the last live stream, what I'd learned. Virginia law doesn't allow him to be tried as a juvenile or an adult at 6 years old. So there is no criminal recourse for a 6-year-old in Virginia, which I think is appropriate in this case. He's bad off enough to where he's a known behavioral problem that his mom and dad have to be with him all day at school. Now, what I haven't heard is why they weren't. Why was this the first week they weren't? Had he gotten better, or they thought he got better? There's just so much more to this than we know. A kid at recess supposedly saw the gun. They didn't call police. They were letting it go because it was near the end of the day, allegedly. I'd say, yeah, we don't want to have to deal with it any more than we have to, was probably the mood.
Mm-hmm.
But
the link to that source that I had, Tom, is in the private chat there.
Okay. Let me hold here. Because I think as a guest, you don't have access to the main chat, do you?
I do not.
I'm sure there's a way to give that to you. I just don't know how yet. But there we go. That's the link that Kyle sent me. There, the assistant principal resigned, and it has a couple other facts. But yeah, I think if we keep up with this, eventually there's going to be, especially the lawsuit, the teacher's lawyer is going to want more of the facts that we're wondering about. They're going to want those made public. So unless the judge puts them under a gag order, my guess is the teacher's lawyer is going to put out a lot more information. And obviously, it's going to make the school look bad, everything that they put out. So that was my update. And let's make Kyle a mod. Well, that's on the YouTube side, I believe, isn't it, Fubar? I don't think we're both in StreamYard, and I have access to the chat in StreamYard, but he doesn't. So maybe I have to give him a login like he's in the account himself, I think. But yeah, I mean, I know Leducator and Ironton Auditor do this, so I know there's a way. I just gotta educate myself. So,
we're slower here in Larry County.
Yeah, slower. No mental health drop-ins. Not sure what you mean by that, Kelly. You mean that no mental health professionals dropped in to check on him? Yeah, we go through a program, Fubar. I'm pretty sure on YouTube itself you can just go live, but StreamYard is a service we go through. So we are on StreamYard, and then it sends our signal and streams. I can stream up to, I think, 10 different locations. Like we can stream to Twitch, Periscope, which is the Twitter version of going live stream, I believe. Rumble. You just have to have accounts set up in all those places, and then I can stream to all of those. So this is kind of the hub, StreamYard, and then it sends it where I want it. So we're not on YouTube. And I think I just got to give him the login, and we can both log in, and then he would have access to everything I do, I think. So Kelly's saying trial period of need and dependable drop. So if I understand what you're saying, Kelly, his parents were required to be there with him for a certain amount of time. They passed that amount of time with some version of flying colors, and then parents weren't required to be there anymore. A dependable drop. So his situation is dependable enough to where they don't have to be there, I'm guessing. Makes sense, but obviously didn't work this time. I don't know. I'm of two opinions in my own head over special need kids in with non-special needs. I mean, it's funny because the way we entangle our words trying not to offend anyone makes it really hard to communicate sometimes. Because I know back when my daughter was in school, I was in the Army and away, and her mom had custody, and she called me up and told me she got into some special program. Well, I think it was called Gifted. And in the area we were in at the time, Gifted was special needs. So I thought somehow she'd ended up in some special needs. And I was like, oh no, what happened? That I'm talking negative. And she's like, figured out eventually that I was not understanding. And so it's a funny story we have, but I thought, something negative had happened. And instead she had gotten in like where she could go to college while she was still in high school and all that. Anyways, so we entangle ourselves with Gifted and special and all this. And in the end, there's a group that fits the standard norms of a classroom and kids that don't. And that's who I work with. So I mean, it's not like I'm unaware of this. It's not like I don't see it and work with it daily, but I am not a professional in it, in the sense of mental health professional, or that's not what my degree's in. But I work with those kids. So let's see. She said, she'll put it this way. We as parents are responsible for Jay's behavior. Yes, they refuse these parents a behavioral tech. Okay.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure, and it's all state by state laws too, as well as federal regulations. So I'm an aide at a school, right? I'm hoping I'll have a full-time teaching job next year, but this year I'm an aide and I work with two kids, and I can't give any details. So I have a little bit of knowledge here. Does anyone want me to time you out? I don't know what that means.
Damn phone.
So Kelly must have said something she didn't mean to. Instead, they did this trial after in-state confusion dependent. Yep, I'm assuming your phone. Damn autocorrect, man. It snags me all the damn time. The Auchentoshan is excellent. Vanilla
Very
and
good.
citrus. Little creamsicle-y there.
I'm going to have to swing by at some point. Try that.
Yep, you do need to swing by.
Yeah, since you're twisting my arm, I'll do it soon.
I know. Right, Kelly. That's kind of what makes sense to me here is you put the parents in. Now, this is a first grader. So he's early into his school career, and his norm is to have his parents with him. And then you take the parent away.
I like Lisa's comment question there.
If you have a child with behavioral issues, should you have a gun in a home? If so, should it be locked up? Well, this has been a subject on a couple shows ever since we started talking about these kids. Yeah, labels. I mean, but we got to have, Kelly. I mean, that's the problem. Is that's what I was saying. Is we try to say what we want to say, but we're also trying to dance around what we're trying to say because we don't want to offend anyone. We don't mean it offensive, but yeah, you got to have labels in order to have clear communication. But I get what you're saying. It's a catch-22 and a little bit of a problem there. But so she said, I talked about my belief in storage. Yes, a responsible adult should take reasonable precautions given their situation. I'm specifically against government telling you any of those standards whatsoever. No trigger locks, no safes, no must be this, must be that, because what works for one situation will not work for another. Without knowing this, so as a parent, whether your kid has any kinds of behavioral issues or not, you got to tailor your home in 1,000 different ways to the kids you got, right? Like Kyle here. Now I'm going to make stuff up. This is not about his kids, but he had 3 girls, obviously a variety of ages. Now, one he may have known like to sneak in the liquor cabinet. Well, he may have
not made up so far.
Okay, I have no specific knowledge here, but he may know that he has to literally lock up liquor because of 1 or 2 or maybe none. He may need to lock up, he may need to have some sort of, in modern times, you got motion detectors where you can check out on your phone who's outside. He may have a kid that sneaks out, which would be a normal teenager thing. Okay, my phone just alerted me and took pictures of you while you snuck out. Now I know. So what I'm saying is we all, if you're a good parent, you modify a ton of different things based on your specific kids. So should they have had precautions? Yes. Now let's say they're telling the truth and they had the gun put away and trigger locked. Well, what they apparently didn't, if that's the case, what they didn't take into account was the kid being knowledgeable enough to get the keys and unlock the trigger lock. And here's the thing about trigger locks. I hate trigger locks. I think they're the stupidest idea. Because think about this. You got a gun. If the gun's loaded and you're putting a trigger lock on it, you are now locking and unlocking a gun with the actual dangerous part of the gun. If it's unloaded, why do you need a lock on it? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. Trigger locks are silly. However, gun safes and other versions of locking your gun up and securing it are excellent. But trigger locks are obviously just the worst idea, period. But the other versions are fine. Biometric safes, if you can afford the best, and I think this family, whatever they could possibly afford is what they should have done, and biometric is what they should have done. So that fingerprints and so forth, the kid, there is no key to get. The 10-year-old who killed his mother, same thing. Now, not everybody's going to understand that much about the firearms world as me and Kyle do, and a lot of other people. But hold on here. Trying to get that comment off. Is that going to work? No, it's not. There we go. So it's a case by case is what I'm saying. Should they have a gun in a home? Sure. My opinion, everybody should, as long as you're not legally precluded or you yourself don't have a mental health issue, because self-defense is an absolute human right. Now, the cost benefit analysis that I teach in classes in regarding this issue, and Kyle will tell you, I teach this as part of the responsibilities of your Second Amendment rights. Your right to keep and bear arms also comes with responsibilities of keeping and bearing arms, and one of them is keeping firearms out of the hands of the 3 C's: children's, criminals, and crazies. Now, I call them crazies not to be politically incorrect, but to simply make it 3 C's and easier for people to remember. You've got to keep guns out of the hands of children, criminals, crazies. In this case, we've got mentally disturbed as well as child. We got an intersection there of those two.
So sometimes an individual is all 3.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I just noticed something ZXL said here earlier that I didn't know what he was talking about exactly. Unless Tom says so, or you violate terms of service or community guidelines. I'm not sure what you were referring to there, ZXL, but I'd like to know because that sounds like something I'd want to know. But yeah, Fubar says, have fun unlocking that gun when someone's breaking in your house. Right. And now imagine you're under that stress. You're trying to unlock a gun. It's loaded, and you're messing around with the trigger. It's just a bad idea. Kelly says, teach accountability and responsibility. Absolutely. And I think with a normal kids, part of the thing with mental illness, any kind of mental illness, is you literally can't understand how they think. We may have ideas and we can predict in some ways, but not like you're non-ill, mentally ill, where you have a little bit more predictability as to what's going through someone's head. But yeah, obviously accountability, responsibility. But listen. Oh no, Kelly, and Virginia law doesn't allow that anyways. We've already said Virginia law does not allow a 6-year-old to be tried as a juvenile or an adult. So it's not going to be tried criminally at all, is my understanding. Oh, he's talking about throwing you out of chat. Okay, with the laughter. So I'm not sure what's going on there, but okay. But yes, depending on the age, there are times when somebody obviously knows I'm going to harm somebody and I know what it's going to do to their life and I don't care. That's criminal intent. If you're 12, 13, 11, 82, doesn't matter. But then there's times when, yes, I want to hurt you, but I don't understand what consequences are quite yet. That may go all the way up to a 14 or 15-year-old based on their upbringing, their mental capacities, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think there's a variety of things the courts should look at there. Problem is, in America, we take a lot of discretion away from judges on that, which can be very good and very bad. It's case by case. But in any case, yes, if the parents feel they needed a gun, yeah, get a gun. Do they have to take into account their household? Yes. I had this in another show where actually I mentioned it in 2 live streams. If you live in a high crime area with no kids in your house, absolutely have your gun out, probably not secured, ready to go. If you live in a gated community with security guards at the gates and statistically almost a 0 crime rate, and you have kids, obviously you would not want to let a gun out because the odds of an accident are way higher than a crime. If the odds of needing it to protect yourself are way higher than an accident, but most of us are probably going to be closer to here, right? Where we live in an area with some crime and we have some kids, maybe at times, possibly. Like I have 2 teenage grandsons and they have friends over. Last night, that was the case. So I grabbed both guns and I just took them to bed with me. Normally they're just laying here on a coffee table because I'm just here by myself. So it's all case by case, which is why I'm totally against a government official, elected or otherwise, telling people how they have to do it. So Fubar, the point I'm making is a 6-year-old cannot be let go scot-free. No, he's got to be, there's some sort of mental health that has to be dealt with here. And yeah, I mean, I don't know without knowing specifics. And even if I did know specifics, I don't know that field as to what you do. But in any case, yeah. Lisa says, I'm still saying charge the parents for the crimes of the child in this case. To a degree, there's negligent homicide, and each state words it different, but there's basically concepts of levels of homicide. And obviously we all know first-degree murders where you plan it, you premeditate it, no 2 ways about it, you were trying to kill someone. Then there's the crime of passion, you didn't plan on it, it wasn't thought out ahead of time and logistically taken into account. It's just, you caught someone with your wife, you killed them, that kind. That's second degree. Crimes of passion, where it just kind of just happens, so to speak. Then there's more you're negligent, and they start dividing based on the states and circumstances. There's other things. So, but for negligence, and this is not an expert. Yeah, that's what I thought was the XL after I heard what was going on there. I thought it was just being goofy. Negligence is, you've also got the phrase in there, gross indifference to human life. What that means is you did something careless. Why? Because you just didn't care about other human life. So for instance, and I said this last live stream, you're driving 140 in a 45 mile per hour zone, right? That if somebody got killed in that process, that's going to be gross indifference to human life. You didn't care about other humans enough that you didn't mind doing the dangerous thing you were doing, or you didn't even take it into account. You care so little. And that's what'll get you. Once again, it can be phrased different ways, but third degree, for lack of a technical term, other versions of homicide. So to me, I doubt that the parent, let's assume for the sake of the argument, parents are telling the truth. It was trigger locked in a closet up on a 6-foot shelf. That's not going to be gross indifference. That's not even going to be neglect, I would guess. But I don't know Virginia law. I don't know Virginia case law. I don't know the specifics of this case. My guess is this is all going to be non-criminal, and it's going to be dealt with mental health professionals, and the parents will be sued along with the school. That's my guess as to how this turns out.
I'll say real fast, Tommy. There was a comment, I believe it was Fubar, a little ways back here, on a topic that we had. There it is, 1035 from Fubar. They need to reopen the state-funded mental health hospitals. There are private hospitals, but they are stupid expensive. We talked about that a little bit.
Yeah.
On one of the previous streams regarding this incident. But
it's a chunk of history I'd like to learn a little more of, because I think it really affects our modern America to a large degree. But a few years ago, actually it was probably more than a decade ago, I learned how we have gotten rid of what used to be we'll just consider the 50s and 60s the dividing line here, because I don't know exactly which year it was. But you don't hear about the homeless issue of the 50s. You barely begin to hear about it in the 60s, and you really begin to hear about it in America in the 70s. So what I've been told, and this is what I'm saying, I don't know the specifics, I want to learn more about it, is that Congress passed some laws which changed in a very large way how we deal with the mentally ill in America. And we no longer have the mental ill asylums that we had in the 50s and previous. Almost all homeless are mentally ill. I'm pretty sure this happened pre-Reagan, Fubar. This happened in the 60s. Now, it may have happened in California when he was governor, maybe part of it out there. I'm not really sure. That's what I'm saying. I can't really speak to the specifics, but we got rid of how we can commit people. And that change allowed them to refuse service, so to speak. So now they go out and they're homeless. That's also a lot of the drug problem as well, is the mentally ill, as Kyle deals with. I don't know if I have I'm not saying I have the answer. I'm not saying what they did was wrong. I don't know, but I am saying cause and effect. You get rid of the way we used to do it, and now you have these problems as compared to other problems. So let's see. Kelly said, autistic kiddo ran to his closet. Dad went to get his autistic son, smacked him rather than talking him through. Are you just going through a fiction in your head there about what might have happened, or are you telling a story, Kelly? Okay. Before that, she said, Dad beat on his kid emotionally and physically. Tornado warning. Kid will not enter shelter with dad. Dad got pets. Rest of family in shelter. Okay. She's okay. Up above, she said she had a real story. Dad beat on his kid emotionally and physically. Tornado warning. Kid will not enter shelter with dad. Dad got the pets and the rest of the family in the shelter. The autistic kiddo ran to the closet. dad went to get his son, smacked him rather than talking him. Well, bad parents. I mean, yeah. Listen, Fubar, I think the idea of being mentally ill sounds like hell on earth in and of itself, whether I'm homeless or in an asylum. Both sound like hell on earth to me. Not being able to control my own mind or know what's real and not real. The first time I got a real rude awakening about my lack of understanding on what mentally ill even meant was the movie A Beautiful Mind. Have you seen that, Kyle?
Beautiful Mind?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
When I saw it, all I'd seen was a piece of the previews, and me and the wife at the time were just looking for a movie to go see. I thought it was an action flick. I thought it was a Cold War spy movie. So the effect of how the movie was supposed to work on people, holy shit, it worked 100% on me. Because I was going through the movie not knowing he was mentally ill. I didn't know who the character was. I didn't know the backstory, hadn't seen the full previews. So I was truly going through it, believing all of it was real until he learned it wasn't real. And I'm like, what is this? And then that stuck in my mind for months, man. I ruminated on the idea of if you go that kind of mentally ill and you don't even know what you believe to be reality isn't the reality around you, that sounds like a hell on earth to me. So Kelly said they entered the shelter, BB gun in shelter, dad still degrading kiddo. Kiddo picked up BB gun, shot dad in his temple and killed him. Holy moly. Does frightened kiddo go to prison when he thought his dad would be? No. I mean, that's going to fall under a lot of battered syndrome stuff that I don't have any expertise in. But yeah, that's not going to be. That's going to. I mean, at absolute worst, if it was an adult, you're talking. Well, if it was an adult, you'd say, well, the BB gun was never thought to be able to kill somebody. So that would be an accident. So that would be like a vehicular homicide type thing. If it was an adult, given the story you've given, the kid probably had no intent to kill. Therefore, it's going to be, some of the lesser version of homicide. Then you add the fact that it's a kid. Then you add the fact that they were beaten on. So here's what a lot of people don't understand, too, about the criminal justice system. And TV kind of shoves them all into one for the sake of making movies and TV shows. You have the did you do it or didn't you do it part of the trial, right? That's the normal trial. The you did it, but you were a kid that was beat on a lot is after you're found guilty. That's during the sentencing phase. That's during the what's called in the military. In military law, we call it matters of E&M, matters of extenuation and mitigation. So extenuating consequences and factors that mitigate how you would punish someone or what you would believe they would be deserving of. So matters of extenuation and mitigation. Sorry to hear that, Kelly. Really am. But thanks for telling us the story. Oh, Kyle's back. He's a new Kyle. He's new Kyle. Let me Kyle.
Yeah.
Did your laptop die or something on you?
Yeah.
Okay.
My computer died.
I heard the little notification, boop, boop, and then you went black. So I was like,
that was
something went wrong there. Well, folks, we're right at 2 hours. I was planning on somewhere between an hour and a half and 2 hours anyway. Kyle 2.0. And that's your phone now, right?
Yeah, it's my phone.
The camera's better on that, so you are, in fact, new and improved in 2.0.
Oh, well. Good to know.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to beat those phone cameras, man.
Well, the iPhone's doing something for me then, I guess.
Yeah. Kiddo placed in quality RTC. I don't know the lingo, Kelly, so I'm not sure what that means. I'm assuming that's some sort of care. The C is something care. Not really sure. Yeah, I mean, the mental health field is.
One thing I don't like is I can't see the chats. I have to go to a whole different thing here. So let me see.
Yeah. The chats are at least 50% of. Manslaughter. That's the word I've been thinking tonight and couldn't think of. Manslaughter without intent. 4 years. Sounds legit to me. Sounds legit.
Yeah.
So let's see. Finish the second one before I close up shop tonight. I'm going to go with the third lowland Scotch that I had on the shelf, Ardbeg. Ardbeg, Wiegedal, right? So that the root there, UIG, that's also the root of the original Gaelic word that we now call whiskey. So it's the w of whiskey is what that UIG is. So Wiegedal, Wieged something. I'm sure I'm saying it wrong no matter how you say it.
Saying it. It's amusing.
No, wait a minute. I'm a little confused here. When I looked it up, it said Ardbeg was a lowland, but right on it, it's an Islay. So Islay scotches are there's an island called Islay, and there's a specific style of scotch made on that island, but that's not lowland. But you know what? I'm gonna have to have some anyways.
Yeah,
Ardbeg is very smoky. It's kind of like you captured some smoke and put it into liquid.
I like to think about it as if when the campfire, the wind drifts slightly and the smoke blows in your direction.
Okay, let's see. Fubar's saying, when you do your event, can you video it? We would love to watch you compete. I'm not sure.
He was talking about the rucking event or
the rucking. Well, yeah, it's actually not a competition. It's I mean, what I tell people about rucking is it's you versus you. It's about bettering you. It's about pushing your limits and making your limit, pushing the envelope and expanding on what you're capable of. There are Go Ruck events that are competitions. I've not been in one. It's now teamed up for certain purposes, it's teamed up with CrossFit International. So the International CrossFit Games that they hold once a year, rucking is now part of it through Go Ruck. So there is some that goes into competition. But however, me and Leducator are planning on live streaming some of our training and some of maybe our group rucks if we get the club up and running again. So one of the great things about Go Ruck too is when you have a club going, you also, whenever there's 4 or more, I believe 4 or more, or 5 or more, you have to carry an American flag. So we have an American flag we carry when we do that. I also am planning on buying the Go Ruck flag. And then if we get enough people doing it, I'm going to spend about $100 and have the Ruck Eyes flag made. So eventually we'll be out there like a small parade. And we were getting to that point when COVID hit and shut us down. So I think we can get to that point again. This takes us back to the Go Ruck, Kyle. I would like to try to do a once a week club ruck.
As a band.
Yeah, okay. But I mean, for people that want to do the selection, you got to train on your own. There's if you and Allie were both doing it, you could train together. But most people, the idea of getting together every day to train, like Joe just told me on the phone, he's like, "Hey, let me know when you're doing stuff, and I'll come do it with you." And I'm like, "Ain't gonna work that way, Joe. When I get home and I'm in the mood to do it, and I got time to do it, I just got to do it." But I'd like to plan one. Yeah, so I'm just out there doing it by myself. My grandson, who's 14, is doing it with me. Now, how far he goes, now he has the ability to do it all. Trust me. Scaled down in certain weights, but other than that, he's got the ability to do it all. Now, whether or not he sticks with it is another story. I think it's better than 50% odds that he will, but we'll see. He's planning on doing a 4-mile run with me, so we'll see. But yeah, you just go out by yourself. When I trained for selection 30 years ago, that's sort of the theme here. Is it was just me by myself, and I don't even think I've told Kyle this, but one of my goals for adding quote stress to the 3-day selection, if we have several people, is at least one of the significant rucks, no earbuds, no nothing. It's just you with you. It's just you battling you. And trust me, your demons rise up and they tell you quit and they tell you stop and they tell you, well, all I wanted to prove to myself was that I could do it. Now I know I can do it, so I can just quit. You get a lot of those things run through your head, as I'm assuming Fubar, from some of the things you've mentioned you've done. That idea of the fight against yourself. So, but no, we would love to get some live stream out there. Maybe do one of the live streams on the Educators channel while we're doing some training, and then do some live stream on mine. If you go on YouTube and you look up GoRuck, look at GoRuck selection. They live stream hours and hours and hours of selection that's still on there, so you can see how they do it too. And you get to see all kinds of their torture techniques and their exercises they do. But you can get a lot of information that way. But no, we definitely plan on doing some. Maybe I'll live stream a little bit of my own rucking here soon. I just don't want to walk out in front of a car or something while I'm live streaming and rucking. Maybe I'll do a mile or so on a track or something while I live stream. I don't know. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for being here. It's really great seeing the same names over and over. I really appreciate your guys' loyalty and the fact that you enjoy listening to me talk about these things. So tonight was a little bit of memory of Robert Burns, the poet, and enjoying Burns Night, his 264th birthday, as well as 2 days ago, it was John Hancock's birthday, and a little update on the Go Ruck and the selection events. And I need you to get hiking the mountains, about a 40-pound pack. You would not think it is exercise, and more for the pure. Dude, I did the second highest peak. No, yeah, the highest peak east of the Mississippi by accident a few years ago, and had planned on my ruck being much longer, but I didn't look at elevations. And so only did like 8 miles and absolutely got my ass handed to me. But it was a blast. I had a blast doing it, but it was just way more than I'd bargained for. So, but no, I'd love to do that, Fubar. But thanks, guys. We will see you, if not sooner, next Wednesday night's my plan. Try to keep that rhythm going at least, and maybe up it an extra night too, as I get some of these tech issues conquered and so forth. So, Kyle, thanks so much for being here, man. Appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed the scotch at least.
Always.
All right. Hey, good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.